Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Pretty in Pink. Today we're going to be making a teddy bear out of sweater scraps. So first we need some sweater scraps. We've got our brown yarn, we've got some needles, we've got some buttons, we've got our fabric scissors, and now you're just going to see me kind of assessing how much fabric I've got to work with. I don't have a lot. As you can see, a lot of these are real scrappy. It's real scrappy. I'm basically going to have to sew these together and Frankenstein them to try to make all the body parts for the teddy bear. Right now what you see me doing is trying to align my pieces, and I'm going to sew them together to basically have enough fabric to create the body of the teddy bear first. You saw that I took out a needle and then I put it back in. That's because at first I was going to use a sharp, but I decided to use one of those thick, I think it's called like a darning needle. I ended up using one of those instead because it just ended up working out a lot better. So now all you're going to see me do right now is patch together the body. So now you just see me trying to arrange the body right now to figure out which piece I'm going to sew next. What I ended up doing was just kind of folding them. Then once they were sewn into a piece that was more manageable, I started sewing, instead of sewing just in a straight line, I started curving my line towards the end. That way when I flipped it inside out, the body of the bear would be nice and curved at the bottom. There's a little cut right here, and that's because my camera fell, so I had to fix my setup again. Also, I'm sure this is obvious to most people, but just in case, I think I should mention, when you're sewing, since we are going to be flipping it inside out, you should be sewing with the right sides together. So the pretty sides should be facing each other. You should be sewing seeing only the ugly sides. That way, when you flip it inside out, the bear will only have the pretty sides showing, if that makes any sense. Another jump because my camera fell again. Also, I know with how fast everything's moving, maybe to some it may look really complicated, but it's really not. You're essentially just making a tube, or you're making a cylinder. It wouldn't be a tube because one of the sides won't be open. You're just making like a little cylinder, and that cylinder, when you flip it inside out, is going to become a body for your bear. It's very simple. I am not good at sewing by any stretch of the imagination, so trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. And finally, after such a long time lapse and so much hard work, we get to see the outside of the bear. Yay! So that's what it looks like when it's flipped inside out. See how it's just like a little cylinder? That's really nice. And then you stuff that and it becomes the body of the bear. So see? And see how it's round at the bottom because I sewed it kind of round towards the end? And there you have it. That's the body of the bear. Alright, so now we're looking at scraps to try to make the arms, and girl, it was very meager. Very, very meager, but thankfully the arms are quite simple. They're just like the body, except instead of having to Frankenstein a bunch of pieces together, you only have to sew 2 pieces together. And once again, you're just going to do it like a cylinder. So what I'm going to end up showing you is just one arm. I'm not going to show you all 4, like the arms and the legs. So here you see that I've done one arm already. It looks pretty nice, and that's not even stuffed yet. And so now I'm just going to show you how I make one arm, and you just apply that same procedure to the second arm as well as the 2 legs. Okay, so here we go. Once again, you're going to be sewing these with the pretty sides facing together. So you should not be seeing the pretty sides when you're sewing. You should be seeing all the ugly insides. No offense to the insides, but yes, they're not that good looking. So we're going to call them ugly. All the ugly insides, that is what you should be seeing. That way when you flip it inside out, all you have is the pretty outer portion of the bear, okay? Now the arms were a bit snug when I tried to flip them inside out, so what I ended up having to do was seam rip a part of it open so that I could flip it out and flip it inside out, and then I would have to re-sew on the outside. So I'll explain it one more time. So when you're sewing the arms, don't sew them all the way closed. Like, don't sew each side closed and then try to flip it inside out. Leave a little bit open so you can flip it inside out much easier, and then you're gonna have to sew with the pretty sides facing you this time. So this time you're going to be sewing with the ugly sides inside and the pretty sides facing you, and you're only sewing like that for that small portion that you left open. I hope that makes sense, and if not, here's a visual. This is me sewing with the pretty sides out and the ugly sides inside because I needed a little bit of space in order to flip the arm inside out. Also, sorry I keep going off camera. I can't see this camera when it's filming, so I try to aim it to know where I am in the frame, and sometimes I'm just completely out of frame. Okay, so now we're done with one arm, and let's compare it to the first one. The shape is relatively the same, not so bad. Obviously it's a little scrappy, so it might look a little rough on some edges, but it's made of scraps. So now we've got the body and the 4 arms. All we have to do now is make the head, and this was real Frankenstein stuff. I had to essentially line these up, sew them so that I had enough fabric just to make a head. It was very interesting, and this fabric that I had left, these pieces of the sweater, are not very meaty, as you can see. They're very much like string, so it was very interesting, but we got it done. We just sewed them together, and then once we had a big enough portion, and once I was able to see like that it would be proportional to the body, I made the head. Okay, here's what our finished Frankenstein piece of fabric looks like. So essentially all I did was fold it in half, and then I just started sewing, and when it got to the part near the corners, I would kind of curve my sewing so that the bear would have a round head. A lot of making this bear round was just me sewing in a curved line instead of a straight line. Please note that I'm doing for the head exactly what I did for the arms. You see me here sewing normally, which is with the ugly sides facing me and the pretty sides inside. Then I sewed up to a certain point and flipped it inside out, so now the pretty sides are outside and the ugly sides are on the inside. And now you're gonna see me sewing that last portion closed with the pretty side facing me. That is just so it's easier for me to turn the head inside out. Once the head is finished, I place it on top of the body just to make sure that it's proportional. And now we can get to stuffing, which is the fun part, or it's one of the fun parts. I first start with the arms, I then move on to the head, and I save the body for last. I make sure that I really stuff them. When you look at these, they almost look like, oh, do they really need stuffing? Trust me, the stuffing makes a world of difference. And guess what? That stuffing is also scraps from the same sweater. So we are making a kind of zero waste bear today, which is really fun. Yeah, we really make sure you put a lot of stuffing into the body, and the head, really make sure you put a lot of stuffing into those places, because you want this bear to be nice and snuggly. And you know, no one has a skinny teddy bear. Teddy bears are always kind of like chubby and full, so that's how you make it kind of cute and welcoming. So after the body and head are stuffed, I kind of mold them with my hands to make them round, because I wasn't really seeing the teddy bear shape yet fully come to fruition in my mind, so I was kind of worried about that. That's why I kept kind of taking a while to mold them. But afterwards, I started sewing the arms. What I'm doing right now for the arms and legs is sewing flaps, because I want mobility on those arms and legs. I want the bear to be able to sit. I want the bear to be able to raise its arms up. So for me to be able to do that, I had to kind of sew the arms tight like that. What you're seeing now is me making ears for the bear, because I forgot to make the ears. I just took one little piece of fabric, folded it in half, and then just started sewing all around that little piece of fabric. And I don't think I folded these inside out at all, so I think it was pretty sides out for the ears. Now I'm just checking to make sure they look good on the head, and they do, so I just continue sewing. And now it's time to close up the holes on the other parts of the bear. So right now we're doing the body. In a little bit you're gonna see me do the head. All I'm doing is I'm sewing back and forth. I don't know what this would be called, but I was sewing it back and forth until basically it puckered and closed up. and that's how I closed the body, and I did the same method for the head. This is the next day and it's time to assemble. As you can see, we've got our needles, we've got our seam ripper, we've got our body pieces, our buttons, our needle, and we've got some new yarn, which I'll show you in a minute. But here's how the bear is looking. Not too bad. It at least looks like a stuffed animal. So we're using this kind of golden yarn this time instead of dark brown because I presumed correctly that these stitches would probably be very visible, so I tried to get a yarn that was as close to the color of the bear as possible. Obviously yellow is not really close, but it was close enough, and it was less striking than that brown would have been, so that's how we ended up doing that. I'm only going to show you bits and pieces of this process because it was so hard. I pricked myself. It was hurting. It hurt my fingers a lot. It was hurting a ton. This was a lot more difficult than it looks, and goodness gracious, that's why I think there's a portion of this where I don't even think I see it to the very end. I end up stopping the camera so I can focus. Yeah, see, I didn't let you see it to the very end, but I let you see the finished product because I couldn't keep doing that with the camera looking at me. Like, I needed to bring it close to my face. But anyway, now I'm doing the ears, same thing, very difficult. I don't know what it was. I guess because I didn't make flaps for the ears and the head and the body, so it was not easy to sew these at all. I kept on pricking my fingers. It hurt really bad. What you're seeing right now is me looking for that finger protector, which didn't even help because I couldn't find my other finger protector, so I only had one, so it ended up not helping. But anyway, that's how we had to struggle through this. But we're sewing the ears on and we got them on there. Now it's time to put the arms and legs on, and if you see, I'm going to be sewing the arms in a way that lets them move up and down, and sewing the legs in a way that lets them move front and back, so that the bear can be able to sit down as well as be able to raise its arms up and down. And that's why we made those little flaps. If we hadn't made those flaps, the bear would just be stiff. As you can see, I had to improvise. I couldn't find my finger protector, my second finger protector, so I started using my eye mask that I used to go to sleep to help me have a grip to pull the needle out. Because the biggest problem was the fabric was so thick. Getting the needle through it was hard, trying to pull the needle through. And the needle is so slick because it's metallic that my fingers kept slipping, so I couldn't pull it all the way through. It took a lot of force. So yeah, a lot of pressure on my fingers, a lot of pricks on my fingers, but we did it somehow, some way. We got it done. We got it done, girl. We had to get it done. We had to get it done. We were too far gone. Also, I'm only showing you the procedure for one arm because it's going to be the same exact steps for the other arm as well as the two legs. Now that we fully assembled our bear, we're just gonna cut off any kind of loose hanging parts, not too much because we don't want to cut holes in the bear. We just want it to look a little bit smoother. And if you keep wondering why I keep changing location, it's just because I keep going upstairs and downstairs based on how hot it is. Anyway, now one of the fun parts is buttons. I had to choose which buttons I wanted to be the eyes and which buttons I wanted for the buttons that go down the middle of the bear. So I was pretty set on 2 small black eyes and kind of navy blue medium-sized buttons for the body. So that's what you're seeing me do here. What's great about this is I got this pack of buttons at the dollar store, and normally at most you can get like 2 of the same button, but I lucked out and I was able to find 3 of those medium navy buttons, so I'm really happy about that. Now you just see me placing where I think the eyes and the buttons should go, and you're gonna see me use brown thread to sew the eyes. So I'm gonna sew one eye and then I'll sew the other eye off camera. So now both eyes are done, and actually one button for the body is done. I forgot to show you guys when I was sewing that button, but now you guys are gonna get to see me sew the second button, so that's fun. Except no, it's not fun because my camera died, so you guys did not get to see me sew the button. So here we are, all buttons sewn and the eyes sewn in as well. And I actually found this button in my little dollar store button container that had no holes in it. So I'm using that as the nose, and I'm tracing out a little bear mouth onto the bear. And once again, my camera died or ran out of space, I have no idea. So it didn't record me sewing the mouth, but don't worry, you didn't miss anything because it honestly looked better drawn on than it looks sewn in. But after I did the mouth, I just hot glued the nose. I tied a white ribbon around its neck, and that's it. That is our teddy bear. The only thing that's missing, of course, is a little tag that says handmade with love. It was between the light brown and the dark brown tag, and I thought the dark brown was a little better. That's me flipping it so you can read it. But anyway, I used that yellow yarn once again. Since the yarn is going to be visible, I always use the yellow when it's visible. Use that yellow yarn, and I sew through the little holes given to me to put that little tag at the back. The placement, of course, of the tag doesn't matter, but I didn't want it smack dab in the middle of the bear's back, but I also didn't want it on the bear's bottom where the bear would be sitting on it, so I kind of put it at the lower back portion of the bear. And that, my friends, is our bear. Here's our mobility check. Now let's learn a little bit more about this bear of ours. His name is Scrappy Bear. He may seem a little rough around the edges, but he loves sunsets, deep thinking, and staying hydrated. But watch out, honey, he's a bit of a ladies' man, and I loved making him. So, thank you all for watching. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more videos like it, please give me a like and subscribe. Bye!